here we are for the final keynote session of the 2020 Retail Innovation Conference. How did we get here so fast? Again, remember, as registered attendees, you can log back into the Convey platform at any time to view the sessions on demand throughout the end of the year. As I'm sure you, just like me, have had a difficult choice in terms of choosing which track to watch and which content, but now you can go back and watch all the ones that you missed. And I'd encourage you to do that, maybe a session a day, a session every couple of days. These are strange times, and I think we all need to keep that inspiration and debate and discussion in the top of our funnel as we sit at our desks. So use the Convey platform. It's a fantastic facility over the coming weeks to keep that inspiration coming. I know I was jumping in and out of tracks all day, and there's some really great debate and content in there. So really put it on the agenda. But here we are at the closing keynote. So let's welcome our speakers for this last session. Firstly, Katie Osberg is Global Retail Partnership Lead Business Communications at Google. She leads the global retail partnerships for Google's new and exciting suite of business communication products. Katie's worked at Google for 8 years, of which the last 5 has been focused working with Google's largest retail partners. She specializes in both conversational and performance marketing and is a thought leader in conversational commerce. Our second speaker joining Katie is Doug Regner, Vice President of Enterprise Solutions at Podium. He leads Podium's Enterprise Sales and Solutions team, which focuses on large digital transformations in retail and financial services. With over 15 years of industry experience at trailblazing organizations like Google and Liftoff Mobile, Doug holds a deep understanding of the modern consumer and what it takes for enterprises to win through innovation, technology, people, and process. Now, a quick reminder again, as Doug and Katie are chatting, keep those questions coming in the Q&A box, and we'll have a great debate and discussion with both of them at the end of the presentation. So keep the questions coming. So for a keynote entitled 4 Ways to Power Touchless Retail with Text Messaging, please welcome to your screens, Katie and Doug.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, Retail Innovation Conference. We're excited to chat with everyone today virtually. This is my first virtual conference, so I think it'll be good. But yeah, we're just really excited to have you. So we're going to talk about 4 ways for retailers to power touchless retail using messaging. And my name is Doug Regner. I'm with Podium. I run our enterprise solutions here. And I'm joined by Katie Osberg at Google.
Hi guys, nice to meet you. I head up global retail partnerships for Google's business communication suite of products. Thanks for having me, Doug.
Well, thanks for having me. And just if you don't know Podium, we are a Utah-based software company, and we work with thousands of local businesses and thousands of retailers, all that have a local presence. And we really try to do a handful of things, including help retailers increase their revenue and market share, compete on the modern customer journey, and also consolidate different systems into one solution. And that'll become a little more clear about what Podium does in the coming slides. As we get started, I wanted to start with a personal story about interacting with retail over messaging. So I lived in San Francisco for about 17 years, and I just moved to Salt Lake City last year. I've been with one wireless carrier for basically my entire life, and always been everything's worked great. And then I moved here, and in my house, for whatever reason, in my particular house, my coverage is really, really weak. And you can see on these slides, these are just my actual screenshots. You can see on the far right, I've got 1 bar. And that's my life in my house right now is 1 bar. And so when our power went out a few weeks ago, I was basically off the grid. And that was enough, and I needed to figure out a solution. What I couldn't really tell was, if I went to a different carrier, would it work in my house? It would be really difficult for me to understand that. So first thing I did was I called my carrier, and I called the local store. I was routed to a central call center. Then I called a T-Mobile store, and they said, hey, actually, you can do a test drive, but you just need to go to our website and check it out. So it was 2 Mondays ago. I'm watching Monday Night Football. I'm in a chair watching TV. I went to the T-Mobile website, and there was this little button that was saying basically click me, click me, click me, and I hit it, and it opened up this, which is an Apple Business Chat text conversation. And this was the actual conversation that I had with a live person. And I thought it was just it was just really stood out to me. Number one, it was easy for me. Like I was sitting doing something else. I didn't have to stay on a live agent, a chat window that, me worried that if I didn't pay attention, the agent was going to leave and have to start the whole process over again. Two, it was highly conversational with a real person. And it felt just like a text message conversation I was having with my friends and my family. So you can see, like, I was sending gifts to the person. She was sending me back, or he or she was sending back emojis. And ultimately, I got my questions answered. And they sent me this little test drive unit that I can actually see that the T-Mobile signal in my house. And so that, to me, when I walked away from this conversation, this heavily branded conversation that was really met my needs, I'm like, this is the future of how businesses will interact with customers. And so this is what Katie and I want to talk to you more about today is, how do you adjust to this different environment of customer expectations and including the current, COVID-19 environment. And so I think, like, one of the things that we're seeing is that consumer habits have changed because of COVID, but they're already changing going into this year. And the retailers that we both work with, and we work with a lot, have been forced to quickly adapt to a number of different factors this year. Store closures, local and state regulations, safety protocols, and just implementing a bunch of new things that they haven't had before. And so what we're seeing is, not only a change in taste due to COVID. So we did a big study here at Podium with the thousands of businesses that we work with, and we learned some of these key things. So number one, like, that consumers are making choices today based on the business ability to be pandemic friendly. But also these will be their expectations long term, that they want more convenience. They want the ability to do things like curbside pickup. And so these are trends that are here to stay. We knew these things were coming. If we can go to the next slide, Katie, in that there are already a number of businesses that are out there today that are increasing the levels of expectations that customers have. Katie said something to me before this that I thought was great. That said that people know the frictionless experiences they have in their life. And I wrote that down because I thought that was a really great way to think about some of these companies that we're interacting with a lot right now that are changing the way that consumers expect to interact with from their businesses, whether it be a fast delivery or lots of content that's easy to access. We are seeing this at Podium, not just in retail. We work with a number of different other industries. We see it in how healthcare consumers are looking for a physician, how people are looking to interact with companies that are coming to service their home for various reasons. They want it to be easy and convenient. So there is one challenge for businesses today, and is that most companies aren't set up to interact with consumers the way they want to interact with businesses. Like T-Mobile, I mean, that was just an amazing experience for me. It really stood out. I think, we know this is going to be the future, but most local businesses have email and phone set up. Maybe they have a website where people can email them in with a form, but they're just really not set up to handle the variety of touch points that consumers might interact with their business today. And that's what we want to focus on, is that we know there are these channels that exist, and if we can optimize them, we can really propel your business forward with messaging.
Thanks, Doug. So now, before I dive into how to go about generating these critical location reviews, as is our first recommendation today, I'd like to take a step back for a moment to discuss how users discover businesses when leveraging a search engine. Did you know that 89% of consumers begin their buying process with a search engine? As a result, it's critical to invest in growing and optimizing your online and local presence such that you don't miss out on general or branded searches for your business. So what do I mean when I say general or branded searches? When people search for businesses on their mobile devices, they usually search in a handful of ways. In this first example here, I know that the Walmart closest to me is on Broadway, and I'll look for that particular location. But maybe I'm new to the area, and I search something like Walmart's near me. What Google and most search engines are going to do are aggregate the locations that are closest to that particular individual. But let's say I'm just looking for a grocery store, not specifically Walmart. I might say grocery stores near me. These type of queries are so popular at the moment that near me searches in the US are up 9 times what they were since 2016. It's pretty crazy, right? So when a user does search blank near me, meaning I've inserted some sort of business or service that I'm looking to render, how do we make sure that they see you and select your business? One way to do this is to optimize your Google Map pack. You can do this by checking to make sure that your Google My Business account actually exists. If you haven't claimed it, you're going to go ahead and claim and verify your business. Once you've done that, you're going to want to make sure that it's updated with recent business information, and then be sure to periodically check back in. Oftentimes, if you've, for example, enabled your messaging function, you'll have users that are looking to reach out to your business, and you can communicate to them directly through our application. But the last, and I think the most important part that we'd like to hone in on this section, is that you really, really need to generate location reviews. They really do matter. But to be honest, I'm a Googler. You might think I'm biased, so just don't take my word for it. You can ask an expert. Doug, it sounds like you've got a great example of how you would go about implementing a variety of strategies to make sure that small businesses, medium businesses, or even large businesses can generate more reviews. Would you mind sharing with the group?
Sure, thanks, Katie. So reviews matter a lot in search, especially that map pack. We know that over 70% of clicks on a local search will happen in that map pack. There's only 3 organic options in the map pack, and they're determined by the star rating, the number of reviews that business has, and the frequency of the reviews that business has, plus some secret sauce I'm sure that Google and Katie can't tell us about. So how do you generate those reviews from your customers? First of all, we know that most businesses out there, your businesses, are great businesses. You have satisfied customers. And what we know here at Podium is if you can make it very easy for your customers, your happy ones, to leave you a review, they will. And the best way to do that is over messaging. That if you can automatically invite someone to leave a review, one of your customers, perhaps after they've completed a purchase at your store or with your business, then they will do that. If you make that process easy, your happy customers will leave you a review. If you make it hard for them, what we find is it's the few unhappy customers that will go to the lengths it takes to leave a review on their own, and they have basically a megaphone. And I'm sure you've seen that, where there's a few disgruntled customers that really get in the way of the job you know that you do, the great job you know you do. And it doesn't stop there. When you can make sure that each of your locations are in the obvious choice in that local search, you see a lot of really positive business metrics happen. So increases in calls, website visits, listing views. I mean, these are statistics across tens of thousands of businesses we have here at Podium that are implementing that text to review solution. And so you can be sure that you're getting found and getting chosen more often. So this is an example of a national furniture retailer that we've worked with. And you can see the progression of the number of reviews that they were able to generate over time, from when they started a pilot with Podium until they did their national launch. That red bar is the national launch. So they went from, to start the year with, almost 2,000 reviews to where they are today, nearly 100,000 reviews. And again, this is just from making it easy, doing it over text, and creating that automation that happens whenever a customer has completed their journey with you. Okay, so step 2, our next recommendation is you've generated all this interest to your website via reviews. Now it's time to convert that website traffic with chat. So we talked about the number of ways that consumers may interface with the brand today. And you may be thinking about this, or you may not be, but I think one of the tough parts for a lot of retailers is the large platforms sometimes are doing this for you, right? When Google launches Google My Business pages, or Facebook launches business pages, etc., they're oftentimes forcing change. And if you're not planning on this, I promise you that your competitors are really thinking about how to leverage these messaging touch points into their flow, because we're talking to them, quite often. Can you go to the next slide, please? So now, once you've driven someone to your website or your Google My Business page, we know that most customers want to immediately engage with your business over chat. Like they want an option just to get into a conversational flow. Again, this is how we communicate with our friends and family. Customers want to communicate with their business that way. And so one of the ways that Podium is helping these companies is putting a solution on the website where that customer can immediately get into a text-based conversation with the business. So here's an example of how that might look on a mobile phone, is that a direct traffic is coming to your site. There's a little button there. You've probably seen this a lot with web, just traditional web chat. The difference here with Podium, and there's some other solutions out there, is that this is going right to messaging, right? And so if you're like me, if you're sitting on the chair watching football, or you're out and about, you don't want to sit on that web chat. You want to go throughout your day and talk to the business on your time. The other part, I think this is really cool, is that you as a business can become a saved contact in that customer's phone. So if they have a great experience with you, they don't need to look for another one of your type of businesses again. They can just open their phone up, go to that saved contact, and continue the conversation. So we worked with another national retailer on specifically this type of implementation. And what they did is they took care of their reviews, but now they wanted to open up a chance for individual customers to chat with that location specific to them, the one that was closest to them. And they have thousands of locations. And so they put a text us button on their store locator page. So you think that if you're at a store locator, you're a pretty high intent customer. And they were able to drive over a 25% conversion rate for those chats that were coming into those individual locations, and generate over $10 million of incremental revenue that they wouldn't have had otherwise in just like a 4 or 5 month period this year. So it was a pretty neat story where, a lot of this retailers' physical locations had to be closed because of local regulations and things that were going on with COVID. But they were able to continue to staff those locations, talk to individual customers that wanted to buy something from them, schedule appointments, or even just do the whole transaction over that message.
Perfect. So step 3 today. So to truly deliver a best-in-class messaging experience, it's critical to nurture and grow your customer relationships and ultimately brand love through frictionless omni-channel experiences. These one-to-one experiences, much like you come to expect in store, no longer have to be in person. In fact, they can even begin on Google search, a business's website, as Doug had mentioned, or even through native text messaging. These experiences can allow you to schedule an appointment, possibly purchase an item, maybe answer a customer service related question, or even start like a video chat with the business. But the bottom line of it all is these personalized experiences happen at the user's convenience and on their own terms. To be really successful in this space, it's become abundantly clear that 3 things must be true about your messaging experiences. They must be asynchronous, enabling users, as Doug mentioned, to pick up and exit the conversation at their convenience. So if I want to come back in 2 minutes, 2 days, or even 2 weeks, I should be able to pick up right where I left off. They must be automated, returning responses to users in real time. And finally, they must be assistive, helping users to determine which products and services are right for them. Now, let's apply these best practices to Google Business Messaging example and see how the sophistication of the conversation evolves over time.
Meet Dash, Bridgeport Runner's virtual assistant. In this example, you'll see that I've asked Dash when my store opens in the morning, and he promptly returns 7:30 a.m. He also addresses my curbside pickup inquiry and finishes by asking if there's anything else I need help with. Now again, the back and forth here is mainly FAQ driven, but even within the language Dash uses, for example, "it sure is," you feel his eagerness, which is in line with our persona best practices.
So that's really what we see business messages being used for today. But let's take a look at what these conversational experiences will look like tomorrow.
In response to "anything else I can help with," I let Dash know that I'm running a 5K and ask him for shoe recommendations. With his enthusiastic attitude, Dash quickly returns a handful of shoes that suit my needs. Once Dash confirms that the product I'm looking for is in fact available, I promptly am deep linked to the website to transact. Here you'll notice that my store and curbside have already been pre-selected, making my checkout process infinitely easier. Then, within the messaging experience, I'm passed the appropriate tracking information and notified when my order is ready to be picked up. Pretty cool, right?
And finally, what we expect the future of messaging to look like, though I don't know that it's too far off.
In this final example, you'll see that Dash has reached back out to me, not only to see how my training's been going, but also to ensure I like my new shoes. He then surfaces many helpful options, including running content, other products I may need, as well as 5K tips. When I click through on the running content chip, you'll see that I'm past a running techniques video that could be incredibly useful as I prepare for the upcoming race. What's unique about this experience is that Dash didn't ask for the sale. He didn't even push me any promotions. He focused on the user and was able to connect with me in a way that few brands can.
Now, we don't expect you to boil the ocean overnight. So let's take a look at a more gradual approach to getting your messaging experience up and running. When speaking with retailers, I typically recommend a phased approach to messaging, or as I like to call it, a now, next, long strategy. In the initial phase of crafting your experience, you'll want to focus on returning frequently asked questions and how to shop content. Many retailers at the moment have changed up their consumption channels, and so we need to make sure that users are aware of things like curbside pickup, how to go about shopping that way, online pickup in store, or even how you pivoted your delivery operations. In the second phase of your experience, you should strive to drive more advanced user journeys within the walls of the messaging experience. For example, this could include inventory lookup, as in the example here of Woolworths in Australia, or perhaps even an order tracking flow. And finally, in our not so distant future, as I had mentioned, I would prioritize building out conversational commerce into your messaging experiences. But beyond the business messages experience on Google, I just mentioned, it's been exciting to see non-essential retailers pivot their omni-channel experience in response to the global pandemic. Here's two of my favorites. So you guys may have seen this in the news, but what Gucci's done is they have an exceptional in-store experience. But during the global pandemic, they needed to find a way to take their in-store experience and bring it to the digital world. Now they're offering personalized video shopping. And again, you could leverage messaging to book these appointments or consultations such that people can shop from the convenience and safety of their own homes. This next example is for Lululemon. Again, maybe some of you guys have used this, but they're going about optimizing their omnichannel experience really in two ways. From a safety perspective, they've enabled a virtual wait list, meaning I wouldn't have to wait outside in line next to other individuals. I could be promptly sent a text message when it's time for me to enter the store. In addition, they're offering digital educator sessions that allow for you to virtually meet with a concierge that could possibly give you product recommendations, fit and sizing help. They can even give you ideas from a gifting perspective. I'd like to finally kick it back over to Doug to talk about how you can benefit by transacting with contactless payments.
Thanks, Katie. So back in February, Podium launched a mobile payment solution for businesses that have a local presence or beyond. And it's really defied our expectations. And I think a lot of that is just, this is a great customer experience that consumers are beginning to expect. They want things to be easy. And then of course, the pandemic has certainly initiated a number of different retailers to usher forth contactless payments with curbside pickup or what have you. And so it's really been fascinating to watch the uptick of this particular solution, because it's really what businesses and consumers are really looking for. And like we mentioned earlier in our study, that customers want these type of things to continue, and mobile payments is certainly one of them. So how does this work? It's really, really easy, and that you think you've already established this conversation with your customer, whether it be over SMS, Google Business Messaging, Apple Business Chat. So you have this conversation already going with your customer, and they're ready to complete a transaction. What we do is make this really, really easy for someone in store. We can even automate this where we can send a payment request to your customer's mobile phone. If they have, they're on an Apple device, they can double click and pay with Apple Pay. If they're on a Android device, the same, or they can pay with a credit card. It all happens on their device. There's no signing, there's no card transfer. There's really, it's all contactless and super easy. And we see a lot of just metric improvements which I'll share with you right now. Next slide, Katie. So one customer that we're working with that has implemented a solution is Ashley Furniture. And the aspect that stood out to them was really about the customer experience, what the feedback was that their customers were sharing with them about this experience. And they just drove a lot of happiness that their customers not only felt safe, but they just were delighted to be able to pay this way. And there's more business metrics. What we're seeing with this solution is some significant business improvement with the adoption of the mobile payments. So over a 40% reduction in chargeback losses, a 38% improvement in labor costs, because you're giving time back to your associates and they don't have to run that transaction and worry about that part. So in a 40% increase in time just back to the people at your stores, they can go and help other customers and do more things. So to summarize, we mentioned 4 aspects to really power your customer journey through messaging. Number 1, really think about your locations and how to become the obvious choice when a customer is looking for your business. The near me search is one of the top searches. Best is another search term that we know customers are using more and more. And so if you can be that obvious choice when they look in their mobile phone, you will get selected and get more visits to your website or calls to your business. Once those people are on your site, get them into a conversation, whether it be through Google Business Messaging, Apple Business Chat, SMS. We know these really, really work into it's a high conversion rate channel that you can nurture to do a number of different things. And then finally, when the transaction's complete, use a mobile payment solution like Podium to not only delight your customer, but to really improve a number of aspects of your business. So with that, I think we can open it up for any questions the audience might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doug. That was amazing. I was really fascinated. I've taken a load of notes myself, and we've a few questions in from Twitter and from the platform. So let's get into question time. Turn on the cameras and the mics, and let's see you guys. So first question, which is really, I suppose, on my mind as you were talking through it. I mean, the number of messaging platforms out there is it's a fair few, yeah? So how do we decide, if I'm a retailer and I'm thinking strategy, how popular is like something like Facebook Messenger compared to other channels like standard text messaging and any other text platforms? So what are the stats, How do I choose how to communicate using which platform?
You want to take that or shall I go?
I feel like I have a biased answer, so I think you should probably take that one.
Right now we're seeing most of the volume happen through SMS, through text message.
Okay.
That would be our first recommendation. Now, some of these other platforms are expanding at a pretty rapid rate. So I definitely would not ignore them, and really think about where your customer base is finding your business. That is probably the number one consideration I would think of. If it's on your website, SMS is a great place to go. If you're more Facebook-oriented business, I would think about turning on Facebook. If people are finding you on search and Google is an obvious choice to turn on as well.
Okay, yeah, let's stick with what you know, I guess. That makes sense. And Katie, in terms of thinking about dealing with customer inquiries every day, while it's great to chat to the customer, I can see store owners thinking about, oh my God, this is another thing that I've got to deal with. So from a staffing point of view, how do we manage another messaging channel like this? Is it more stuff onto what we already have? How do we do that?
No, it's a great question. So I think that there's a misconception that most of these experiences that come through over the messaging channel have to be answered by humans, and that's just not necessarily true anymore. I've seen even the most basic of bots contain up to like 80% of overall conversations, because really when people are coming in through a local entry point, so some of those queries I talked about earlier, if I'm typing in, Target near me, Walmart near me in my earlier example, I'm looking for oftentimes a handful of things. I'm looking to check the store hours. I'm looking to say like, hey, I showed up the other week and they had, at-risk hours. Google said this. I just want to double check with the business. Again, they're asking a lot of the same frequently asked questions. So if you can find a way to automate and streamline those answers, you're going to answer the bulk of conversations that are coming through to you. And in the instance where the bot might not be able to help out with answering some of those like questions, that's where it can be handed off to a live agent to answer something that might be more sophisticated, like, I purchased it, it's beyond the returns window. I want to know if I can get my money back or just store credit. Like that might have to go off to a person.
Okay. And I know Google have done a fantastic amount of work on virtual assistants, and that's such the humanization of AI, that humanization, that human voice is so important. Because one of my concerns is that I think early on in the presentation you said, businesses call people text, the way we talk to our friends and family. And then if we drop AI into that platform, we could potentially jar it, unless you get that AI voice right. If it's very obvious that I'm talking to a bot in a platform that I'm used to having genuine connection with my friends and family, that's going to jar for a customer real quick. Any kind of thoughts on that in terms of, because we're early days AI still, we're still kind of a bit clunky chatbot for a lot of people. So when we drop that into this such personal way of communicating, does it even get a bit stickier?
Absolutely. I think bots in general have a bad rap. People just make the association that it's going to feel robot-like. It's not going to feel human. Yeah. But the thing about it is most of the companies that you're going to work with now have some sort of natural language platform, such that when you're asking questions the way a human would ask questions, it's going to return an answer the way a human would answer. And those bots and the experiences will learn over time. The other thing I always encourage businesses to do is like get your marketing department to like involved. So like if I was speaking to Progressive Insurance, I would expect to speak to Flow. There's these personas that brands have attached to them that they need to pull through all of their conversational experiences, not just from a customer support perspective, but also from a sales perspective. So you want to make sure that even if it's a digital agent, that one looks and feels like your brand, and your marketing team's going to typically have a persona that you could assign to it. So that's kind of how we get around the bot-like experience that you're speaking to.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And Doug, Podium, from a Podium's point of view, how do you consolidate both the traffic on all these messaging channels and review sites? How do you bring all that together for a customer?
That's right, Ken. So I think this relates back to the previous question. If you already have messaging enabled, if you're using Podium, to add another channel into that conversational stream is quite easy, because from your end, a business owner's end or the retailer's end, it's the same inbox, we call it, where you can have your Google messages, Facebook messages, etc., all into the same place. So even if you don't have a bot, if it is a human responding, you don't have to go to multiple logins, multiple windows, what have you. So that is.
Do they all get sucked down into a CRM system somehow? How do they all get woven together for one place?
Yeah, well, for the message response and the review invites, there is the Podium inbox. That's going to bring everything together in one place, so it's really easy. And then, yes, if you have a CRM or a different type of solution, that we can write those messages back into that CRM, so you can maintain that conversation, own that conversational data, and do the things you may want to do with it.
Okay, that makes sense. And Katie, so for that 80-20, so let's say 80% of the traffic is the FAQ stuff and it's all click to touch. For that remaining 20%, even still, let's go all the way to the most personal way of talking to someone, which is maybe a video call. That would seem to be like really time consuming for like staff to manage. So if we're going to take it to the next level, and I really want to chat, any idea of where that's going?
So I think there's a couple of things that we forget about what's happening this year as it relates to video chat. Fewer people are going to physical locations because of the concern of COVID right now. So I think what a lot of businesses are trying to do right now is to swap out what would have been an in-store visit with a digital one, such that they don't lose that sale. Podium supports that. It's a really, really neat way to just obviously capture what you in theory would have lost, especially as we head into the holiday in Q4.
Yeah, and what about the employee side of things? Because again, you're asking employees, we're always talking about to our employees about customer experience and how important that is, whether it's digital or physical in a store. And now we're asking them to bring that, digitally through a screen to get that across to the customer. Wow, you know, how are we going to motivate our employees, train them to be able to do that? And they're great at that in their own lives. Can they translate that, I wonder, from customer experience? Have you had any case studies or any kind of experience with it?
No case studies yet on our end. I think it's still a bit too new, but the one thing I would say is, like, I would imagine that store associates have been trained to sell. And if they could spend 100% of their time selling, their job satisfaction would probably be higher, profits would be higher, customers would be more delighted. But it's funny, I worked with one of the country's largest retailers for many, many years. And it's a fair stat I could share. The number one question that they get asked in stores, store associates, is where's the bathroom?
Yeah.
So if we can filter out things like that and swap it for selling, I think both, you know, consumers and retailers win.
Yeah, as long as the employees don't end up taking calls with customers on the bathroom.
Yeah, that's probably problematic.
Well, it's our new reality. Listen, Katie and Doug, thank you so much for joining us. It was an insightful presentation, a great way to close the conference, and thank you for hanging around for Q&A. Really appreciate that, and thank you so much for joining us. And we'll say goodbye to you. So listen, for those of you who have been with us for the last 2 days, thank you so much for attending. It's been a roller coaster ride of 2 days for the 2020 Retail Innovation Conference. I've enjoyed so much of it. There was, you know, over 50 sessions, over 100 speakers. If you got to it all, you're clearly omnipotent. So remember, it's all online on the platform for you to watch on demand, and really do, as I said in the intro to this speech, dip in and dip out over the next couple of weeks, and, you know, keep the inspiration going. So a huge thank you to all of our speakers, all of those people who moderated sessions for us and all the tracks, to our sponsors, of course, a huge thank you to you, and most importantly to you, the attendees who have stayed with us for the 2 days. I hope you've had as much fun as I have. It's been so productive and inspiring. It's been really inspiring. I mean, this is an innovation conference. It's in the title, and it certainly hasn't disappointed me. There's been a huge amount of innovation, a lot around technology, a lot around customer experience, all the challenges. There's been so much business case studies shared. So make sure, if you have missed a couple of bits that you wanted to get to and didn't, make sure you go back in there. One last thing, keep an eye out in your inbox for a survey link. Of course, we would be fascinated to know how you've felt and experienced the event. This was the first absolutely virtual retail innovation conference, so we'd love to kind of get your feedback. So that will be coming your way, so please make sure you fill that in. And without further ado, let me close the 2020 Retail Innovation Conference and tell you that I will see you hopefully live next year in October in New York. And if not live, hopefully a hybrid, virtual, who knows? It's an uncertain future. I've been Ken Hughes. Thank you very much for joining us. Goodbye.